Hi friends, welcome back. Today we are making something like Tom Ford's Tuscan Leather. This is a brilliant fragrance released in 2007. The perfumers are a mystery, or at least they're not listed on Fragrantica. And a quick Google search, and I mean quick, didn't yield me any results. So I'm going to chalk it up to it's a mystery. Now, I have made this before. I've made a version of this before. It was my own formula based on a GCMS analysis or a GCMS report. This formula comes to us again from this Russian Telegram channel, Kaikin, don't know how to say it. If you know, please comment, help out the class. And this was highlighted on Perfume Archaeology, the Instagram channel that I do like to check out. And I do like to blend the formulas that are on that channel. If we look at the structure of the formula, most of this is in the base. We have a lot of musk, and 10%, if not a little bit more, is in leathery notes. We've got a lot of pyrrolone, we have a lot of suederal, and we have some safranal, very powerful material, which really contributes to the leatheriness of this formula. What also surprised me is there is a lot of lily of the valley, jasmine-like notes. Sure, we have some hedione. Don't they always have hedione? Roughly 12.5% of the concentrate is in hedione. But there's a lot of floral, lilial, and then a couple of other materials. So let's get this started. Why don't we start with our musky, ambery base? We can start with the galaxolide. Now today, I am making almost a 7.5 gram batch. The end concentrate will be 20%. This was released as an eau de parfum. I have a sneaking suspicion 20% is going to be a little strong. Could be wrong, but I have a suspicion. Maybe I should do this at 15%. In any case, I want to warn you, the formula you see in the description is the formula that I have adjusted and modified so I can make 7.43 grams of the juice at a 20% concentrate. One of these days, I'll show you how exactly I do that. So if you take me literally and I say that galaxolide is 20.17% of the concentrate, and then you do a bunch of math to try to confirm or deny whether that's true, you know, God bless you and best of luck. But I'm getting kind of, I shouldn't say tired. I love helping you guys out and answering questions, but I'm just realizing that the formula is the formula. What I make here is the formula, but it is adjusted for my batch size and my desired concentrate. So take it with a grain of salt, because occasionally I do something wrong. I mistranscribe, or I do something wrong in the formula creation, and I don't get the percentages correct. For example, going back to Angel's Share type, that video that we did, somehow I quadrupled the ethyl maltol. I don't know how I did it, but I quadrupled the ethyl maltol in the version that I made. So, you know, just enjoy the commentary. We are still going to start with our galaxolide, using galaxolide 50. And again, about 20% of the concentrate is in galaxolide 50. A very versatile musk. It's used a lot in laundry detergent. I don't think it's extremely biodegradable. Okay. You know, before I forget, let me add in the Perfumer's alcohol. I need to add about 2 grams of Perfumer's alcohol because some of the materials that I'm using neat or at 50% dilutions when I pair those up with all of the other materials that I'm using at a 10% or 1% dilution, if I didn't add any ethanol, then my concentrate would be too high. I might be around 25 to 30% concentrate. Yeah, I would probably be around 30% concentrate. So I need to add some ethanol to bring that dilution for my end juice down to 20%. Let's stick with the neat materials. We're going to do ethylene brassylate. Okay. Very thick. Again, almost 20% of the concentrate is an ethylene brassylate. Okay, perfect. Looks like I got an extra drop in there. So slightly overdosed the ethylene brassylate. Now I will say, whenever I'm putting together a fragrance, you know, if I'm like plus or minus 10% on what I'm adding, no biggie. I believe your nose and its sensitivity to smell is something like there's a logarithmic reaction. There's not a linear reaction. In other words, twice as much ethylene brassylate does not smell twice as strong of ethylene brassylate. In order for ethylene brassylate to smell twice as strong, you need to put 10 times the amount of ethylene brassylate. So a 10% error, no biggie. Let's continue with our musks. We have 2. Ambretellide. I love how warm ambretellide is. It's a little more elegant to my nose than ethylene brassylate. Just a little bit warmer. It adds a nice roundness. Or it contributes. I like that word better than add. Contributes a nice roundness. Next up, Muscanone Delta. There is equal amounts of muscanone and ambretellide. Oh, and I love muscanone. It is very elegant, but also dirty. Little animalic like wet fur. But wet fur in a very enjoyable sense. Not like dirty, wet dog. Not that kind of animalic, but more of a sensual animalic. And who doesn't like sensual? Come on, let's be honest. Okay, we've got our musks. I need to add some of these other ambers, and we're going to include our Isoe Super in the bunch. You know, there's not much Isoe Super, comparatively speaking. I only have a couple drops here. Couple drops at 100%, I mean. Wonderful. Okay, next up, the ambers. I have, let's just start with the ambroxan at 10%. Yeah. I don't think ambroxan smells like what you think it smells like, especially if you follow fragrance reviewers and they say, "Oh boy," with a with like a bitter beer face. Oh, all the ambroxan that I'm smelling. I don't think they know what ambroxan smells like, because I have never smelled ambroxan and go, "Oh wow, too much ambroxan." It smells so good. It's ambery, it's soft, it's woody, it's like got this golden hue to it. It's amazing. It's really good stuff. Now I can see how you might wince if you pair that ambroxan with some other super woody ambers, like Norlimbinol, Amber Extreme. ambronol, you know, a dirty amber, an animalic amber. Let's add some ambronol here. This is at 1%. It reminds me a little bit of indole. If you were to take amber, ambroxan, norlimbinol, you were to soften up the norlimbinol, take it in the real ambroxan direction, and then, you know, wave a magic wand and add an indolic vibe. That's what ambronol reminds me of. Okay, next up, Z1110 MIP. From Firmenich. This is the chemical in here is amber ketol. Oh, and there's only like 1 drop of this. So it's another woody amber. It's very strong. It's definitely a little more dry. You could say it's like it's trying to be animalic, but it doesn't have the courage to be. But it's dry and it's woody and it's got an amberiness to it. I think that's good enough to start. I'm going to add a hint of DPG because there's a couple other solvents in here, and I want to try to be true to the formula. I'm not going to add the isopropyl myricate. I'm going to add the DPG though. I'll just add a little more DPG to compensate for the non-existence of IPM. Okay, friends, look at that. Can we see this on video? It's over half full. We've added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 ingredients, including our ethanol, and we're already halfway full. Okay. Let's dip. And we're just going to write base. Base 1. All right. So exciting. Now, before we move on, I want to add other base notes, other woody notes. We got vanillin, cedarwood, and guaiacol. And I have this oddball. Frankincense. Olibanum. What do I do with it? It's woody. It's terpenic. I don't know what to do with it because there's no other like terpenic smell in here. It's kind of an oddball. It doesn't last as long as cedarwood or vanillin. Maybe we'll throw it in with the thyme. I don't know. Guys, I'm struggling. I don't know what to do. I don't want to add it in with the, it's got too much character for me to go into the base. We have easygoing musks, easygoing ambers. We're about to add some classic, but easygoing vanillin, cedarwood, and then guaiacol, which I think ties in very well with the vanillin. So let's do this. Let's add our vanillin. Vanillin basically needs no introduction. I'll bet you if I dipped vanillin and vanilla absolute, I bet 19 out of 20 people or 99 out of 100 couldn't tell the difference. Which is fine. There's no judgment there. Not at all. But when you smell vanilla, you're smelling vanillin, you know? All right, let's do our cedarwood next. Cedarwood, Virginia. Not much of this. Just adding a little dry, woody amber character. Cedarwood smells so nice. Guaiacol. There is only about a drop and a half, and this is at 1%. Yeah, and I love this. It's a lot like vanillin. It's vanillin. If you were to take out the sweetness, but you have the smoothness, and instead of sweetness, you add a little bit of smokiness, and I mean a breath. At least a breath when I'm smelling it at 1%. All right. Yeah, so whoops. So I doubled the guaiacol. I broke my 10% rule for a 10% error rate. There is a 100% overdose of guaiacol, but oh well, no biggie. Let's shake. Then we're going to add our leather notes. Going to keep going. Okay. So let's dip, and we'll just write base 2. Okay. Next, let's add the leather. This is the core, the heart of the fragrance. I know it's leather raspberry. We'll get to the raspberry, but this is the core of the fragrance. So let's add it. We are going to start with pyrrolone or isobutylquinoline. Ooh, dry, leathery. Smells like a very brand new leather handbag, leather briefcase, but it's bright. There's a brightness to it. Okay. Wonderful. Next, we have Suederal. Suederal, this is at 100% by the way. Suederal LT is an IFF, an IFF blend. It is a lot like pyrrolone. I'm sure pyrrolone is in this, or isobutylquinoline is in this, but it's a little sweeter. It's a little more balanced and smooth. Shouldn't need to get a whole pipette. It's sticky stuff. It's thick. Does smell absolutely lovely. Lovely. Okay. Ooh, now I won't do one more drop. I'm going to empty it, and then I'm going to clean the pipette with the juice, with the ethanol. And that should bring me right up to target. And then I'm not wasting any. Yeah, that's perfect. Perfect. Okay. I have a bunch of Suederal. I was working on a leather fragrance that I put on hold while I shifted gears. Sometimes when I hit a roadblock, I gotta just put it on hold, go somewhere else for a while, let my nose work on something else, and then I can come back to it with fresh ideas, a fresh brain. So the leather fragrance is in that category, but it's about time to bring it back. Next up, Safranal. A beautiful, wonderful, dry, leathery smell. Very strong. In fact, most of the time when I'm using Safranal in a fragrance, I'm using it at a 0.1% dilution, not a 1% dilution. Yeah. It's been ages since I've smelled saffron, but they say it's called Safranal for a reason. It smells like saffron. I don't actually know what saffron smells like. I know it's very expensive. I'm pretty sure it's in some, Michelin starred dishes, I would guess, because it tastes good or it contributes a nice flavor. I don't know. But in any case, saffron, the smell of saffron or the note of saffron is often used when describing Safranal. Or in a fragrance, when someone says, or when the marketers say this contains saffron or notes of saffron, what they really mean is Safranal or Safralane. All right, we're going to call this leather. Leather. That's strip number 3. Where we're going to head next is the raspberry accord. We are going to add raspberry ketone, sometimes called frambanone. Can't remember who smells frambanone, who sells frambanone. But if you ever see frambanone in a formula, they're talking about raspberry ketone. And this is another material that often when I use it at a 1% concentrate or 1% dilution. Right now I'm using it at a 10%. It is only 0.6% of the concentrate raspberry ketone. So isn't it interesting that only 0.6% of the concentrate can contribute a legitimate raspberry feel to it? We're going to add 2 more. Isoamyl acetate. I think this stuff pops. It's fruity. Oh, yeah. It's strong. This is at a 1% concentrate, and I need to somehow put in 0.004 grams into this here bottle, which means I've got to just let some collect here at the tip, let it exit. I think that's about right. I know I've done it right when I can see that there's a good amount in my pipette, and I put it in the bottle, and my scale does not register that I put anything in there, because my scale will not register anything less than 0.05 grams. So I think I nailed it, is what I'm saying. All right. Now that isoamyl acetate will do a couple things. First, it's a top note. It does not last long. Usually materials that are that strong, that cut, that pop, that really punch, they don't last long. That's why they punch so hard. You know, they're that bright sun that burns out quickly. But that will add to the fruity pop on the front end, both of the raspberry ketone and of the leather. Next up, a little bit of cis-3-hexanol, otherwise known as leaf alcohol. 0.005% of the concentrate is in this. Yeah, I overdid it a little bit because I put in a full drop, but whatever. This stuff is a little more forgivable. And it's at a 1% concentrate, 1% dilution. So, you know, we're fine. Okay, we'll give this a shake. Then I will get the next strip going. Okay. Here we go. This was, I've already lost my train of thought. This was the raspberry. Tell me, friends, how do you pronounce raspberry? Is it raspberry? 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 Or do you say raspberry? Because I'm more of a raspberry guy. Next up, let's get in our florals. Yeah, let's do our florals. And gosh, I've still got thyme and olibanum that's like, what do I do with these? I'll put them in at the end. Let's do them at the end. Let us start with damascenone. I put this is classified as a floral, but I think I should move it to the fruity section. The thing is that it smells so rosy to me, like jammy, sweet, fruity rose. That's what I smell. But I could easily put damascenone in the fruity category. Okay. Done. Next, some standards. Linalool and ethyl linalool. Let's add our linalool. There's equal amounts linalool and ethyl linalool. Yeah, linalool, classic smell. Fresh, floral, metallic. It's bright. Does not last long. on a strip. And it's found in so many natural materials. Next up, ethyl linalool. Now, I can't remember, ethyl linalool is not found in nature. I think that's correct. I should probably Google it because Lord knows I don't want to disseminate incorrect information. But I remember looking around at some of the molecules that I have and going, oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that doesn't occur in nature. Now, ethyl linalool has a wonderful corollary. How do I say this? Ethyl vanillin is to vanillin what ethyl linalool is to linalool. It's a bit sweeter, lighter, almost candied, but very, very, very similar. Next up, two more. We have alpha ionone. And again, there's not much. All of this stuff is just adding a little bit of body. Now that said, the ionones are stronger. To me, they're stronger than linalool and ethyl linalool. They cut a little bit more. They provide a little bit more oomph. But all we're doing here is we're just adding a nice generic floral body. Because if we didn't have a little bit of floral body, this would just seem a little bit empty. The damascenone certainly helps. That's some ripe, juicy, fruity floral material. So you don't need much of that. Next up, dihydroionone beta. This smells really nice. I should bust that one out and give it a proper evaluation. It's been a while since I've smelled this one. Dihydroionone beta. It's a bit, I'd say a bit darker, a bit jammier than our ionone alpha. Okay, we're good. We are good. Shake. Come on, get the thing. I'm trying to multitask here. Good. And when I dip, you dip, we dip. Wonderful. And we're going to put floral core. Number 5. All right, friends, we've got 2 more groups. The next group has quite a few. Oh, I grabbed the wrong material. It has quite a few materials. Now, what is going on? I've got here Lilial replacer. But where is my Lilial? It should be right here. Oh, I put it. Okay, this is a problem. All of this. I have like muscle memory of where certain material goes. Lilial goes right here. If on accident I put it one shelf lower or one shelf higher, we're in trouble. I have a really hard time finding it. In fact, I lost my ambrosinide at 1%. I lost it for 2 months, and I scanned each and every bottle up here multiple times, and I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it until I finally tore the whole thing down and then put it all back up because I was moving offices. So I have to be very diligent where I'm putting each of these materials. Okay, let's do our Lily of the Valley and jasmine materials. This, I think, is going to be really important, and I'm excited to actually smell this in action because I would imagine now with the florals, with the ambers, with the musks, and with the leather, all of this smell can be a little too focused and a little too heavy in the middle. And what this is going to do, I expect, what this is going to do is lift it up, and as it lifts it up, open it up. Provide some space, provide a little clarity, provide some breathing room in the fragrance. And if it doesn't do that, if it does something different, then hey, then a learning moment is in front of us. So yeah, let's start with our hedione. I'm using a 50% dilution. Hedione is over 12% of the concentrate. I love learning moments. I've realized that, one of the most valuable lessons I've ever learned is I've learned how I learn. I feel like if I wanted to go into engineering, I could do that. Why not? I've never taken calculus in my life, never taken engineering, but if I wanted to, I could. Only because I know how my brain works. I know how to assimilate information in a way that works for me. Next up, floral. Floral's nice. It's a lot like Lily Owl and Leral, though to my nose it's softer and a little bit more centered. It's not as green, not quite as bright, but just as open, just as lovely, but it's a bit more soft and sweet. But one way that is very important to my brain is setting some kind of expectation. And whether or not at the end of my task or my job or my project, comparing the output to that expectation is one of the important ways that I learn. So, as I've gotten a little bit more familiar with these materials over time, I started to incorporate, that practice, saying, okay, I'm adding hedione. I would expect this to be more floral, with some lift, a nice hue on top of the fragrance, and then see what happens. If that's true, then great. You've just solidified that expectation. And if it's not true, perfect. You get to revise that expectation. Next up, let's do our Jasmine Absolute. Real Jasmine Absolute from Egypt. If I remember correctly, the color is wonderful. Yeah, it's dark. All of the Jasmine Absolutes that I've tried, all of them are how do I say, richer, a little bit more indolic than the Firmenich Jasmine Specialty. Or Jasmine 231. I don't know I can't remember what it's called, or I've seen it under a couple different names. But I don't know if that was the purpose of that Jasmine Specialty from Firmenich, or if it's supposed to serve a different purpose. If it's not meant to mimic Jasmine Absolute, Jasmine Grandiflorum, what is it supposed to do? I think Firmenich, those perfumers, are good enough where if they have a purpose in mind, they're going to execute. So I must be misunderstanding the purpose, or I have not yet found a good Jasmine Absolute, which is entirely possible. That's entirely possible. Next, Lily Owl. I like Lily Owl. It's a lot like Floral, but brighter. Oh boy, I was looking at the wrong line. I thought I was overdosing Lily Owl by a factor of 10, but we're good. We are good. Okay. And it's about time. You know that sound. Okay. Next, Lily Floor. This is different, and this is absolutely lovely. It's more creamy and lactonic, thicker. Definitely thicker in the nose, not like, you know, the actual juice is thicker. It just feels like, it feels more full in my nose. It's absolutely, ooh, it's lovely stuff. Lovely stuff. We've got two more. Mayjif, otherwise sold as Mayol. Mayjif is an IFF product. I think I'm on like my last bottle of Mayjif formally, and I've got a big bottle of Mayol. I hope there's not too much of a difference because I'm about to switch it up. And again, this is very similar to the other Lily of the Valley materials. It's bright. It's a little bit creamy. It's this nice white floral. Not really a hint of anything narcotic, you know. It's just wonderful. And finally, and I chuckle using this, methyl jasmonate, sold as Splendione from Firmenich. It's a lot like Hedione. Might be a bit more green, but I chuckle because in the last video I said, I don't really know what's the difference, you know, what is it used for, you know, versus Hedione, methyl dihydrojasmonate. And someone commented, they just made this comment, and it was basically a copy and paste of what Pell Wall writes about methyl jasmonate. You know, it's floral, it's diffusive, it adds body, just a copy and paste. I thought that was funny because in practice, what I want to know is from someone who's experienced, someone who's put in the time and done their research with this, like, why do you use this? When do you use this versus Hedione? Does it complement Hedione the same way that real Rose Absolute might complement citronellol and phenyl ethyl alcohol? I don't know. But I bring that up because this stuff is so expensive compared to Hedione. So this stuff must be magic if they're going to put this in a formula. At least that's the story I make up in my head. Let's give it a shake. I'll get good. Okay. And friends, we are almost done. We've got two more materials after this dip, and we'll do some evaluation. Okay. So we're going to put Muguet. Finally, we have thyme and olibanum. Now let's start with the olibanum, otherwise known as frankincense. This stuff is from Somalia. I've noticed that Somali frankincense or frankincense carteri is a little bit different. Oh my gosh, my English is a little bit different than olibanum carteri or what is it? No. Boswellia carteri is olibanum from Somalia. Boswellia serrata is frankincense from, at least the stuff that I have, from India. And they are slightly different. Ever so slightly. And I'm very interested to see how these contribute. Now, I will say the thyme, even though there's not much thyme, red thyme, in this formula, if I remember correctly, the last time I made this, the thyme is dirty enough, and it definitely adds a dirty herbal quality that pairs I better double measure. Let's see how much we're putting in. Okay, like a drop and change. The thyme adds an aromatic aspect, but if you know thyme, you know that it has this edge to it that really complements leather. You could call it, it's an aromatic leather note. They play well in the sandbox. So let's give it a good shake. Okay. Give it a dip. Not even going to mark it because I know that's the last one. Okay. Let's evaluate. So let's start with the base. We started with all of our musks, our ambers, and our ISO E Super. And interesting, I'm able to get the muscadone that's in here. I wonder why that is. Muscadone is not necessarily a strong material, but lately I've been able to pick it out and go, oh, there's that wet fur smell contributing to that nice, musk base. This is wonderful. It's soft, it's round, it's musky, it's warm. It is inoffensive. It doesn't smell of much, but it's musky. It's soft, it's warm, it's just something easy. It smells like skin. It smells like a nice skin, or at least the way you'd want skin to smell. Next up, we added our cedarwood, our vanillin. We added one more thing, our guaiacol. Vanillin is perceivable. Cedarwood, not so much. And I would imagine the guaiacol is contributing on a subconscious level. It's giving us maybe a little bit more realism to the vanillin, as if it's a substitute for vanilla absolute. But this is nice. It's the perfect amount of vanillin and everything else to where it just takes our core and it just opens it up a little bit, gives it a bit more personality. Now next we added the leather. A lot of suederal, a little bit of pyrrolone, and enough safranal. And that's leather. Leather is dominating. You can still pick up on the musky base underneath, but that's leather. So what I find interesting with the combination we just did, here's our base, all right? Here's leather. Let me get that on screen. Here's our base, here's the leather. You can smell them separate, and there's not a lot in between. There's not a lot around it. Nice base, leather up here. There's a lot of space to be filled in. As it stands, it's great. It's great. I like the direction we're headed in. Now, with the base and the leather, let's see what happens when we add in the raspberry note. How does it fill it in? Oh, guys, I didn't dip raspberry. I must have wrote something on it, but I didn't dip the raspberry. Dang it. We move on. Okay, I added the damascenone, the linalool, ethyl linalool. We'll take the raspberry too, all the raspberry ketone, cis-3-hexanol, isoamyl acetate. And we also added the ionones, alpha ionone, dihydroionone, beta. Wow. Wow. Right here, it already smells like Tuscan leather. The raspberry's coming through, and I think I probably should have paired the damascenone with the raspberry ketone, rather than just going raspberry ketone. Oh yeah, okay, noted for future use. Raspberry ketone in and of itself definitely gives it a raspberry flavor. But under the raspberry flavor, there's a supporting fruit body, and that's the damascenone. By the way, this is how my brain is trying to interpret what I'm smelling. You may have a different experience. You may draw a different mental map. Take what I say with a grain of salt. I'm not saying every time you have raspberry ketone, you better add damascenone. It's not what I'm saying. This is how I'm just making sense of what I'm smelling. So thank you for hanging with me, watching my brain work. This is really a perfect pairing, like cheese and wine, raspberry and leather, that fruitiness in the leather. And I can smell, it seems to me that the ionones, that the linalool, ethyl linalool, all of that is the raspberry part. It may be a blessing that I did not dip the raspberry ketone, isoamyl acetate, and the cis-3-hexanol. That may be a blessing because I'm smelling this now and I'm just getting wonderful raspberry. Next up, we added all of the lily of the valley notes and a little bit of jasmine, lots of hedione. Let's see what happens. Wow. Friends, I'm going to do quick math here. 7, 19 and a half, 23, 24. Almost 25% of the formula is in these white florals. 25% of the juice. And we went from nice leathery fragrance to a perfume, a formal fine fragrance. Luke's not in here. Thank you. My dog just came in. She's licking herself. It's very distracting. Yes, we went from a nice fragrance to a fine fragrance just with the addition of that lily of the valley jasmine blend. This smells lovely. It smells wonderful. Before we smell the addition of thyme, I'm going to just put a little bit on my hand, and I forewarn you, I'm going to rub it together. I shouldn't have rubbed it on this hand because that's where I'm going to smell this final one. Let's smell the final one. This was the addition of olibanum and thyme. Let's see how that affects what we made. Interesting. Believe it or not, I'm getting that terpenic quality from the olibanum, and there was only a couple drops in there. It's so delicate, it's so light, but it's subtle, it's there. And I only know it's there because my brain, if I had just smelled the difference, I go, oh, it's a little dirtier. But I know it was olibanum that is adding some of that terpenic quality. And the thyme is noticeable. It's so subtle, but it is noticeable. It adds a little bit of dirt, a little bit of earthiness, a little bit of dirt. That's wonderful. Very surprised, first of all, very surprised at the base and the leather and the separation there. The raspberry note is not just raspberry ketone, some of this. It includes the linalool, ethyl linalool, the ionones, and it fills in, it bridges together the leather and the base. All of the muguet and the lily of the valley and the jasmine takes our fragrance and makes it a fine fragrance. It's amazing what that did by itself. Wow. And then didn't know where to put the olibanum and the thyme, but they add a little bit more complexity, a little bit of dirtiness to it. Let's smell it on the skin. Yeah, per usual, much more toned down. I am getting a fruitiness that's a little bit more aggressive than I was expecting. I'm comparing this right now to Tuscan Leather, which I've smelled before, and my Godolphin Parfums de Marly, which is essentially a, shouldn't say it's a clone, but they're very similar. And I'd say this is extremely close. Extremely close. We will see how this matures and how this ages. But I would say this is a fantastic study formula. I hope you can put it together and come to some conclusions of your own. Have some epiphanies of your own, because aren't those exciting? As usual, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.